What up guys, it's Matt. So today I just wanted to do a couple of things real quick, just an update. So I passed my clinical simulation exam, and first thing I did pretty much when I got home was I got it scanned in. So the sheet that shows the score, I got it scanned in to my computer and emailed off to the state, because that was the kind of the last piece of my puzzle as far as processing my state license went. Now it's just a waiting game as far as them processing the license. They quote you 8 to 10 weeks, mostly because of the background check. So I got my fingerprints and all my proof of citizenship stuff sent out last Wednesday. So hopefully I can make it in time. In Arizona anyway, they only approve new licenses once a month when the Board of Respiratory Care Examiners meets, and the next meeting is scheduled for June 21st. So I'm hoping that all my stuff is cleared and good to go before that date. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about today was interviewing and dressing for your interview, at least how a guy should be dressed for an interview. So how I'm dressed right now, this is not how you would dress for an interview. A lot of you will probably cover this, hopefully, before you graduate, either in some sort of like a professional development class or like the same type of class where you would like go over resumes and stuff. And a lot of it's kind of common knowledge. It's things you would do for any interview. I mean, a few things as far as how to interview, you know, be early and let them know that you're there, you know, like reception or whatever when you check in. Be prepared with questions that they're going to ask you at the end of an interview. Usually is when they do it, they'll say, hey, do you have any questions for us? And have a few questions for them. They don't have to be crazy. And they shouldn't be about money necessarily either, like how much do you guys pay? Just questions maybe about what kind of scope of practice do your therapist have at this facility? What type of advancement opportunities are there throughout your tenure at this facility? Stuff like that. And go in armed with the ever-dreaded, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? And make sure your weaknesses are truly weaknesses. Don't try to pull that nonsense where, oh, I care too much, I try too hard. You know, those aren't weaknesses, and most interviewers can kind of see right through that. So be sincere and do some real like self-evaluating. And I mean, an easy one that one of our instructors had mentioned that we should always say that we all have a weakness in, especially as new grads, is time management. Most of us have not been given a full load of treatments to do on a single floor at one time. So having time management that's an okay weakness to have as a new grad. Obviously, if you're going in and you're an experienced therapist and you're going in for a job, probably don't want to say that, because you should have time management down if you've been a therapist for years. And next is dressing for an interview and how you should appear. You could argue about the kind of ever-evolving definition of professional. Some old school thoughts are like, you know, dress for the manager's job or things like that. There's some truths to all of these things, and it's just kind of picking out, I think, is what most is applicable to you. For instance, I live in Arizona, and I don't know if you know this about Arizona, but it's hot. And even though it's technically still spring, we already have our first week's forecast coming up of like all these days are 100 degrees. When it comes to dressing, should I dress in a full suit with a jacket and like a vest, like a three-piece suit? Like, absolutely not. That's crazy. You're gonna be sweating, you're gonna be dying, and it might look weird too when if you walk in dressed like that, you know, and it's 105 degrees outside. That being said, if you look nice, you look nice, you know, whatever. But I don't plan on dressing like that for an interview. Mostly because I don't have a suit jacket, but also because it's hot outside. But I do think there are some standards of practice that should be adhered to. And there's also an element of professionalism versus fashion. It's not as big of a deal to me to be fashionable when you're looking professional, but you also don't want to look like you've just thrown together random pieces of like dress clothes. So a few things that I recommend are, number one is that everything should be clean, and obviously not just washed or dry cleaned. When I say clean, I really mean they should be pressed if they need to be ironed. If you don't know how to iron, I recommend you look up a YouTube video about how to iron, because I'm not going to iron my clothes for you on camera. They should be pressed. You know, everything should be ironed. And don't, if you have a really wrinkly shirt, unless you have like a wand steamer or something, don't try to just hang your shirt up in the shower the day of the interview to knock out wrinkles. And you really should go above even like tossing a wet washcloth in with a wrinkly shirt in the dryer. That works sometimes, but it doesn't look as good as a freshly pressed pair of pants and a shirt, and your creases are tight. I mean, it just looks good when your shirt. On the subject of ironing your clothes, be sure to read your labels. So whether it's something you already have or something you went and bought specifically for an interview, different materials act differently. And if you're like me, you can be a little lazy sometimes, and you just turn the iron on to whatever arbitrary setting you normally do, and you iron away. Read your clothes, read the labels for ironing and for washing and drying. Obviously, if you have dry clean only clothes, do not put them in a washer or dryer. Take them to a dry cleaner and pay that $3.50 a shirt or whatever they charge to do a shirt and a pair of pants. When you iron too, I mean, if a shirt or a pair of pants will tell you use low heat this, so don't just look at what the shirt's made of and look at the iron and be like, oh well, this says it's 94% cotton, so I'm gonna use cotton. Like, cotton is high heat, so if the other material making up the other 6% of that shirt is something that's super sensitive to heat, you could ruin a shirt or just make it fit weird. So normally there's some sort of an ironing instruction. And when you wash your clothes and you dry them, take them out of the dryer immediately, and that makes ironing them a heck of a lot easier. Number two is that your clothes should fit. And you know, I know everyone's personal comfort with their clothes is going to vary, so this is kind of all over the place. But you know, you don't necessarily have to go in with some sort of athletic or fitted shirt and pants necessarily, because there's regular, there's fitted, there's athletic cuts, there's slim cuts, there's all kinds of different cuts of clothes. You know, wear something you're comfortable in, but make sure it fits. You know, like if you have a 32-inch waist, do not go in with a pair of dress pants that are like a 38. And you know, don't go in with something that's like super tight. You know, your clothes need to fit. Your shirt, again, personally, I don't think the shirts matter as much as like a good pair of pants that fits. But I mean, if you're sitting there and you have a 14.5-inch neck and you're wearing like a 16-inch neck button-up shirt, you know, and it looks massive and your arms look like you could survive a fall out of an airplane, you know, to me, are those things that an interviewer may notice? Maybe not. But again, it's just putting the look together, a professional look. You know, I think it does say something that you're dressing nice, and that's trying, and that's worth something. But do yourself a favor and just make sure your shirts fit properly. And again, I'm not saying you need to go open a brand new Kohl's card and go spend $300 on clothes at Kohl's and then take them to you know, a sew and vac shop to get them tailored to you or anything like that. I'll say this, what I wore at my pinning was basically an all new outfit. I had gone to H&M at the mall and bought a pair of pants, and I tried on like 3 or 4 pairs. I was really looking for a light gray pair of pants, and so I found a pair that I liked, tried them on, they fit me the way I like my clothes to fit. I think they were a little long in the leg. Again, that is kind of borderline on fashion. They weren't dragging on the floor, they were bunched a little at the bottom. Again, that's more of a fashion cut than an unprofessional look level. And I think they were like 35 bucks. And then I went to Kohl's and tried on probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 different shirts. I was looking for a lighter blue shirt because my last light blue shirt I basically wore the heck out of. It was falling apart, so I finally got rid of it. And I hadn't replaced it, so I got one, and I found one that fit. So I like, not necessarily slim cut, but not regular. I like kind of athletic to slim fit personally. And so a couple of things like with arm lengths, like your sleeves, guys, shouldn't come to like the base of your fingers, right? Your sleeves should like come to like maybe like the lower third of your palm, and they shouldn't come way up either when you're like lifting your hand. They should only come up maybe to like here on your wrist. And that's how you know you have a good like arm, the length in the arms. And then it doesn't take much to measure your neck, guys. I mean, if you have a tape measure, really, you can get a rough idea how big your neck is. And I get it, again, it's personal comfort. Some people just don't want something real tight against their neck. But you also don't want this big thing that's hanging way down. And when you button it, you still have like slack here. You know, it's one thing to be able to fit a few fingers. But if it's slack down and then like you're trying to tie a tie up and it's bunched up, that can look a little weird. So, you know, so get something that you're comfortable in, but not something that's either huge and obviously not something that's like choking you to death either, because that's not going to be comfortable. You want to be comfortable when you're interview. You don't want to feel like you're dressed oddly, even if you don't normally wear dress up clothes. So, you know, as far as things like pocket or no pocket shirts, like that doesn't matter. You know, that's personal taste. That's a fashion thing. That's not so much a professional thing. And then it comes up a lot, ties. Like, should I wear a tie or should I not wear a tie? A business casual interview technically does not dictate a tie. So I think if you wore just a button-up shirt with a nice pair of slacks, nice shoes, and a belt, and the belt should match the shoes, that is borderline fashion, but that's just weird to me. I think your shoes should always match your belts. If you're wearing brown shoes, wear a brown belt. If you're wearing black shoes, wear a black belt. Yeah, definitely don't think you need to wear a tie to an interview. In the world of fashion, the common thought process says that unless you're wearing a vest of some sort or a jacket, that you shouldn't wear a tie. I think it's okay to wear a tie without a jacket if you really want to. And then as far as a tie goes, if you only know how to tie a half Windsor, which is the up, down, around, and through, you need to learn how to tie a full Windsor. Especially if you're short like me. I'm only 5'8" when I wear shoes, and most ties are kind of a standard cut. And a half Windsor, in order to get the front of the tie to sit about where it needs to be, which the tip of your tie should sit about mid-belt line, I usually have way too much slack on the adjustment side. So my recommendation is, if you're tying a half Windsor, which is a little skinny casual knot anyway, learn how to tie a full Windsor, which is basically a half Windsor with one more step. And with that, it'll eat up a little bit of that extra slack. So if you're short torsoed like me, or you're short overall, it eats up the extra slack. You have a nice full tie look, and you don't have to worry about doing anything with that extra slack hanging down. And then you can use a standard tie clip if you'd like, or a pin. You definitely need to shave. You know, don't go like me. I mean, I was pretty hairy in my last video because I hadn't shaved since the day I pinned, or the day before I pinned even. And I trimmed my beard yesterday. But if I was going to interview right now, I'd be clean shaven. If you do normally wear facial hair, I'm not saying you have to shave all that off, but your beard or your mustache or whatever you like to rock needs to be trimmed. You can't go in looking like you've been living in the bush on the outback for the last 6 years. You know, you need to be groomed nicely. So, you know, take a minute. And I know this sounds crazy, but if you have facial hair, you know what I'm talking about. Take care of it. You know, buy those special tonics at the beauty shop to soften beard hair, comb it, do a little topical trim, or hit a barber shop and have them do a nice trim on your beard, clean up your edges, because it'll make the difference. It shows that you give a crap about how you look and are presenting yourself to a potential employer. And then haircuts. You don't necessarily need a fresh haircut. You know, if you're looking kind of ragged, maybe go get cleaned up a little bit. If you've had a haircut like in the last 2 weeks, unless you get a haircut every 2 weeks, I wouldn't stress it too much. I mean, if you're really concerned, again, hit a barber shop or something, have them clean up your edges around the sides or something. You know, don't think you need to get a full haircut. If you're in need of a haircut, I recommend getting one at least a week before an interview. That way, everything kind of normalizes. You kind of have weird hair when you first get a haircut. So you kind of grow into it a little bit and you kind of figure out how it's going to act once you get it cut again. So try to get your haircut at least a week before you expect to have an interview. Obviously, if you get caught off guard and they drop like a, hey, are you willing to interview tomorrow? Yes, you know, don't say no, say yes. And then, you know, then jet and get your haircut, and then, you know, you just kind of deal with it. So try not to get a haircut like the same day, unless you absolutely have time to like maybe shower and make sure you rinse all excess hair trimmings off and stuff. Guys, if you have piercings in your face or in your ears or anything, obviously take those out. I think for females it's okay for like a small nose piercing or something. Obviously if you have like a crazy septum piercing, or you have big gauges, like I never had huge gauges, but I remember I had like 6 gauges. I actually took those out about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago, just basically in preparation for the potential. I do plan on stretching back out. Most of the hospitals here are pretty lax on that kind of thing. But again, it's about appearing professional. If you do have big gauges, wear something that's kind of low profile. You know, you don't want to go in with something massive looking or anything. You know, you don't want to draw attention to your ears. The attention's on you and the conversation you're having with your employer or potential employer. All right, guys, so that's all I have today. I just wanted to do that video on interviewing and just some tips for dressing. I know it kind of focused on guys a little bit. As I'd kind of mentioned in a past video, I don't know as much about how to dress for women, obviously, because I'm not one. The one thing that always comes to mind is that you don't wear open-toed shoes. You always wear a closed-toed shoe, so either a flat or a heel or whatever you're comfortable in, but just as long as it's closed-toed. So that was the one resounding thing I remember hearing about. So sorry ladies, don't have a ton of advice for you, but I hope this helps. Guys, if you have any questions about anything in terms of how you should be dressing for an interview, do not hesitate to comment, message me, anything. I'd be glad to help, at least with my opinion. Everything I've said is none of this is set in stone type things. If you're curious about some fashionable / professional type of attire, one place that I learned a bunch, especially about colors, how to match colors of like tie to shirt and that type of thing, was there's a subreddit called Male Fashion Advice. Now granted, a lot of that is borderline high fashion type stuff, and a lot of them will tell you need to go spend like $1,200 on a new suit. But there's a lot of really great advice, sound advice, and there's usually like at least 2 or 3 times a week a simple question thread where you can go on and ask questions like, I have this color shirt, what color should my tie be? Or what color would go best with this? And I definitely recommend checking that out. So I'll put a link down in the description for you guys. I hope everyone has a great day. I'm enjoying not being in the program anymore, not having to worry about tests and school and everything else. It's just getting to hang out a little bit, see my kids a bunch, catch up a little bit, and then start mentally preparing for interviews, and I'll keep you guys updated on everything that happens. Anyways, take it easy, and I'll talk to you guys soon.